What is up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of the Everyday Carry podcast, where we nerd out about EDC gear. I'm Bernard, founder of everydaycarry.com, and I'm joined by my editor, Mikey. It's kind of an introduction to EDC and Everyday Carry, and it can mean different things to everyone, so it should be a fun topic to get into.
Yep, excited. Finally getting this off the ground.
Yeah, I know, right? So, before we jump into the episode, what is new with you?
I am excited to move. And as a result of me having to look at new places to move at, it's putting my EDC to the test, actually. I've been opening a lot of packages, testing out some new knives, testing out some new bags. And since I'm going out pretty much every day, I'm being able to put everything to the test. So that's been pretty fun for me. How about you?
So, are you moving to a place with a bigger closet, just more storage space for bags you don't need?
Yes, absolutely. I'm already scoping out all the shelves
Okay.
I'm going to need for all this stuff.
There's quite a lot to cover. I don't know if you guys have seen our social media, like our TikTok and stuff, but I'm in there. I'm making some of that content. And we do have some new releases this week. I think we can talk about it now.
Yeah.
Embargo should be lifted by now. So, what came out that's pretty interesting?
The Leatherman Arc, the
Yeah.
first multi-tool from Leatherman in 4
Four?
years. Yes, 2019 was when the free series released.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
we each have one. You have the P2, I have the P4, and I have the T4 as well. And it basically marked the first leap forward for Leatherman, pretty much because they started using a new magnetic system. It operates via one hand for all of the tools. All of the tools are outbound, so that was pretty nice. And the art came about as a result of them experimenting with their garage, like limited edition special forces group within Leatherman. So the recent one that came out was the Garage number 5. And that one was special because it was basically a free tool, and then it came with a Magna Cut blade.
Oh yeah, I saw it. I saw it slip right out of my cart into someone else's, and I did not get a chance to get one. I'm pretty good at spending money online, and no, I took the L on that. It was very hard to get, sold out in like seconds. Um, there were people in our Discord that got it, and I was like kind of cursing them under my breath. But it's okay. I mean, I ended up, like you said, I ended up getting a production version of the Arc, so it's I think more or less the same tool. I think there's just like not spring loaded pliers on the Arc that just came out, and the colorway is not as cool in my opinion as the Garage 005.
Yeah, the Arc is a bit more of my colorway, black and silver, black, of course. The Garage version had like skeletonized handles. The Magna Cut blade was also like this copper brown, which like really made it stand
Yeah,
out.
that's a flattering way to describe the color of the blade, by the way.
Yeah, the, now that they actually decided to make it a production model, it's pretty exciting. So now everybody can get their hands on Magna Cut, which is kind of like the hot new steel. Coming out and everything, like kind of like Ultem for blade handles. Magna Cut being like designed to be like the perfect steel. It has all of the top tier corrosion resistance, and also tough, and also like holds an edge, and also like comes out super sharp. Designed by one of like the premier knife nerds in the community. So if you haven't gotten a Magna Cut blade yet, now's your chance to have it in a fully loaded multi tool. So that's pretty exciting for me.
Okay, true. Well, we are leaving out some important details. It's like $230, I think. It's like the most
Mm,
expensive Leatherman to date, and like the most advanced, right? Just the architecture it's built on, use of magnets, like all new design, like the curation of tools in the tool set. So that is all cool to people like us who kind of know what's what in the EDC world for the most part. But there might be people listening who they I don't know, maybe they still think that EDC is a rave. Uh, or they just don't really know like what's latest and greatest, but they just think this stuff is interesting. Maybe they saw something on Instagram or Reddit or something, and they're like, "What is everyday carry?" And maybe they listen to podcasts, and that's how they found us. Maybe on YouTube. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Just sort of like a little primer into everyday carry, just what it has become. Because how long have we been having conversations between us about this stuff?
I can count over like 12 years since we first started talking in your DMs.
Yeah,
I slid into your DMs on your blog.
yeah. Yeah, 10 plus years that we've kind of been covering this stuff, right? So a lot can change in that time, and a lot can change, especially for something that even back then was so individual to the person, like the meaning and like how you could sort of practice EDC and get involved, right? So I think it would be kind of interesting to just maybe reminisce a little bit about how it was before and then how it's changed over the years. Um, so my question for you is like, what is your definition of EDC or everyday carry?
My definition is making sure that as I go about my day, I have everything I need to get everything I need to do done. So if like a big part of my day is opening packages, or like a big part of my week is opening packages, because I kind of like order a lot of stuff and spend way too much online. So I kind of want to have a knife on hand, because I do have like utility blades all over the house, but I kind of like having a knife on me,
Mhm.
just to have that extra like experience. I'm also like very interested in flashlights. So, and I used to walk my dog a lot at night. So that came in handy every single day, because like I always like to use the example of, you would carry an umbrella for like 50% chance of rain, but it gets dark every night. So why not carry a flashlight with you?
Right.
Even like just finding that right balance of something that's easy to carry for you, doesn't get in your way, easy to use, and I get to nerd out about stuff that like makes my life easier. Like if I'm traveling, I'd like a nice bag that I can carry my laptop in comfortably. I'd like a, I don't know, like a nice sling if I don't need to carry my laptop, just something easy to carry, something that if I need to do like groceries quickly, or like I need to do a quick errand, deliver some packages. It's just finding little solutions through the use of gear, and then finding like appreciable solutions and useful solutions and like interesting things to me that I can kind of nerd out about. I can nerd out about materials, about utility and functions and stuff like that. So I guess that would be my definition.
Okay, that is a very Mikey answer. That is not necessarily a like how would you explain like it's like they're five kind of answer. But
Mm,
you know, some of the things I was picking up on in your response is there is some value placed on preparedness, right? And then like problem solving. That's what it seemed
mm,
like to me, right? So um yeah, I mean, if I were to answer this, I would be a little bit more literal just to get people on board. Something that I like to tell people is everybody has an everyday carry, whether they know it or not, and it's just the things that they keep in their pockets to feel prepared for, you know, a day-to-day thing and what they would consider essential. And the reason I think everybody already has an EDC to some extent is because most of us need to carry smartphone, wallet, and keys. I That's like, you know, the classic example of like you tap your pockets like three times checking for those things before you head out the door. That's usually what I use to sort of get people to start thinking about everyday carry. And then like you were saying, there's like gear involved, there's preparedness, there's problem solving for specific tasks. That's when you can sort of introduce the idea of, well, yeah, if you want to open boxes, you could struggle with your fingernails or your keys, or you could just carry a small folding knife that ends up being more useful than you expected it to be. So that's sort of how um, I kind of tell people, but I do echo those the values of like preparedness, utility, and versatility for multiple different scenarios that might pop up. It's interesting though. What I noticed in your response is you were the things that you picked and you prepare for are things that are pretty routine. Whereas I think interestingly, a lot of the early forms of everyday carry had some of that for sure, but a lot of the early forms came from like emergency preparation situations, right? So you had survivalists, and then you had like first responders and like off-duty law enforcement. I think one thing people might not know, depending on where they actually see the term everyday carry, is from my understanding anyway, it originated in off-duty law enforcement and like what firearm they needed to carry every day. And then that's sort of like where that term was used, kind of in that tactical kind of gun space. But now I think it's changed over time. What do you think about that?
That's a good segue for me into like, remember we would have early readers who would always come up to us and say, you know, I was carrying before everyday carry was a thing. And it's like they were carrying their
Yeah.
old like their grandfather's old knife. They were like, I always have a bug out bag in my car. It was something I was taught when I was younger to like just like have a first aid kit in there, just be prepared for all inevitabilities. I think that's a good that was a good early days of EDC. Like you said, the it now it's delving more into like the utility and daily tasks and more mundane things. When before it was like that was already part of it, and you now wanted to
Hmm.
prepare for like the other eventualities. Like, what if I had an emergency? What do I need, like a trauma kit and stuff like that? Do I need like extra stuff in my car that I should be worried about? What do I need to do in case of an emergency? Like self defense was a big topic, obviously as a result of those early forums and like the early mindset. Yeah. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I just think over time we see maybe less of that discussion about like preparedness and carrying or having a first aid kit or trauma kit because I think it's not as sexy anymore, and I
Yeah.
feel like there is just some kind of intrigue to modern EDC, and it's really shifted probably from the purest definition kind of that we just outlined, right? Like the
Mhm.
old school versions of that. um and I don't know,
And
do you agree? Like what are some
it's
examples?
it's just such a bigger market now. It kind of like, remember the early days of EDC. It was so easy to make a recommendation. You look for like a Phoenix EO5 flashlight. You recommend a specific Victorinox, an Ontario Rat 2. Like the market for EDC across the board, across all of the products, was so simple back then. There wasn't like,
Yeah,
remember when fidget
much
toys
smaller
became a thing?
offering.
Remember when fidget toys, the first one
Yes.
of the first fidget toys was created by an EDC person. It was like the,
Are
gosh,
you
I
talking
forgot the
about
name of
the
it.
zero
The
feud?
torque bar.
Zero
The
feud?
torque bar. It
Oh
was the
yeah,
torque
yeah,
bar,
yeah, okay.
remember? It was the first machined thing that was like a high-end torque spinning thing. Before the fidget spinner term with the triangle shape became popular, the plastic one,
Yeah,
it originally was the torque bar.
I
I
never
believe,
got a
yeah.
fidget spinner, by the way. I
Yeah, no,
mentioned zero
never.
feud because like I've really wanted one for a long time. um anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, it is different, and it was so much simpler back then. Like when I was just blogging on Tumblr, I don't know if anyone listening even remembers that, but it was like a popular micro blogging platform um, during the early days of social media, around like
Hmm.
early 2010s. So that's where I was at. And you're right. It was like when people would ask like, "Hey, what flashlight should I get?" There was only like a few brands, like 47s, Phoenix, Nikkor,
Hmm.
maybe Eagle Tack, something like that, right? And
Yeah.
then now there's just like so much more competition, and then the there's just a bigger spectrum of like how casual versus how enthusiast do you want to get about that. And
Hmm.
because EDC has, I think, grown and attracted so many more people, we start to see some of that segmentation and that striation into those different camps, and the discussions that they're having are different. So for me as somebody who's making everyday carry content, it's interesting to see what resonates with people. Uh, Regardless of what resonates, I'm the one getting roasted anyway for some reason. In the comments,
You
it's
have
like
become a target.
the casual people. Yeah, I know. The casual people will say like, "That's stupid. That's so expensive. Why would you get that? Nobody needs that." And then the enthusiast people will be, they'll say like, "Oh, it doesn't perform as good as the thing that I have, and like this is cheap." And it's just like, so you can't really win in the EDC community, but that's what
This is,
makes
I
it
think this is a
beautiful,
nice,
I guess.
this is a nice place where we can bring it back. Where I think the important thing we want to stress here is, you asked me earlier what EDC meant to me. I think that should be the default question for everybody who asks about EDC. What does it
Yeah,
mean to you? Is it something like, do you want a piece of sorry, a piece? Oh my god, a piece of functional art like a watch, which is its own thing?
Mm.
Do you want that to reflect in all of your stuff? Do you want like your knife to be a piece of functional art? Do you want your flashlight to be like super enthusiast, or do you want something that just works? Do you want something that's more utilitarian? Do you want something that's just like robust and has like a lifetime warranty, stuff like that? So it that's why I think for both of us it's a bit hard for us to make recommendations these days, because it's always the question becomes a question, like
That
um
is very true.
right, because
There's
somebody
no
asks us
like
what's the best
default
knife.
go-to thing. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's gonna ask us what's the best knife, and we'll come back with, okay, so what's your budget? What preference do you like? Do you like something
Right.
that looks like your grandfather's pocket knife? Do you want something that's like fully decked out titanium, exotic steels, and all of that? Do you want something
Yeah,
that's like, yeah,
that's a great point. I think something that's implicit in that question and that ask, when people say,
mm,
"What is the best X?" Right? What they
mm,
really want to ask is, "What is the best X for me?" But they might just not know how to arrive at that conclusion. So it's understandable that they would just ask like, "What is the best thing?" And then we give like anyone can give a recommendation. Everybody's going to have a different answer, right? Some things like there might be some models or whatever products are more popularly recommended than others for like a number of reasons, but it's very easy to get like what I might consider the best anything, and then somebody will be like, oh, it's too expensive, or like I don't like the way it looks, or like, oh, it doesn't ship to my country, just like there's so many
mm.
things that disqualify it from being the best until you make that qualifier of the best for me. But that just requires a lot of work, and I think it's
And not a lot
kind
of
of
people
difficult
like that
now, like,
answer too.
yeah, not a lot of people want to hear that. So it is difficult, but that's kind of getting to one thing I was sort of wondering, like, then how do you do it? If you're, if you're a listener of this podcast, you probably have some interest in EDC. I don't know if you're like a seasoned vet, or you just have some passing curiosity and you want to get into it. I think we've started with this framework of understanding that maybe your research on your journey to building your everyday carry is going to be like, what is best for me. But then aside from that, in the modern world of everyday carry and like, digital spaces and online whatever, this kind of content, where would you start?
I would start the way I recommend anything pretty much. Like, did you see something that piqued your interest? Or is like, because, here's the other difference with old EDC and new EDC. There's this new component now where there's an implicit question where, like, recommend me something that's A, that's nice, and B, I wouldn't be ashamed of showing other people. Because there's that element now. That's kind of like a new EDC now, where
Mm,
if you like put together an EDC and you show somebody else, as one does in modern EDC, you don't want to get laughed at, right? Because
mhm.
it's like you want to show off something that I know about this thing. I want to show off that I'm like, I if you know, I know about this knife that's like, it's not that expensive, but it's also pretty cool. There's always that element of like, that wasn't there before. Really remember,
Yeah,
like, before it was so different.
I think you're talking about the V word,
Mm.
validation.
Mm.
But I'm going to step this back a little bit, because
Yeah,
you do bring up a good point, but I don't know that it
that's a
really
topic for
depends
another
though.
day,
It
I
really
think.
depends on the yeah, I know, but it depends on the person who's asking that question, right? Because if they're new to EDC, um, maybe they do want to stick to more of the traditionalist sort of practice of it, where it really is functionality above all else. They want to solve a problem, right?
Mhm.
But then there is the side of it that I think you're kind of getting to, where especially in modern, 2023 social media, and like there is like this, I don't know, like flex component, and
Mm.
it's so polarizing. I know some people are probably rolling their eyes, but that's kind of true. Like there's so much of more of this like show and tell kind of culture, and I
Yeah.
think it's okay, because it it's a way to just share your passion or whatever and find
Mm.
your community online. Like you kind of have to participate that way.
It's how you participate in the hobby
Yeah.
now, really. Because like you want to be excited about the thing you just got, and you also don't want to get laughed at, as with any hobby, right? Like if you start to play basketball, you don't want to look like an idiot out on the court. You want to know at least something, or you want to show off your skill and like be a participant in the hobby. the unfortunate thing I think here is for EDC, participating has a cost. And of course, there's also that factor of you don't want to spend on something that ends up A, you not liking it, B, somebody else making fun of you for it, and C, ultimately not being useful for the original intended purpose.
True. Um, yeah, I would put C first, but that's just me. So yeah, let's. Sorry to like kind of interrupt your original
Yeah.
train of thought, but you were going somewhere with,
Mm.
you know, there's people want something one that like looks nice.
How I would recommend.
Yeah, something that looks nice, and then something that
Mm.
will kind of prove that you made an informed decision and you kind of like know what you're getting into. And then was there anything else after that?
Like you said earlier, it's so personal how something gets value for a person. That's why it's so hard to make a like a solid recommendation right away. Like if somebody asked you, "What's the best watch?"
Yeah,
it's you automatically launch into like a flow chart of like, okay, price, style, brand. Do you want it to be Swiss? Do you want it to be Japanese? Do you want it to be automatic? Do you want it to be? There's so many. We're burdened with the knowledge of like
yeah,
making recommendations and also wanting it to be like a good experience for the person asking
right.
us,
It's a
right?
Casio, by the way, not sponsored. Yeah,
Mm,
I see where you're
that's
getting
right.
with that. Yeah, for me, I would say,
So I always like I guess I always end up with, did you see something that you liked from somebody? If did somebody share something on social media that seemed interesting to you, then maybe we can dig into that and like what is it you like about it? Do you like the
mm,
size? Do you like the color? Do you like the style? And I think that's how my usual path of recommending something is like, oh, you saw this watch from a movie, that's from a really interesting brand, and maybe you might be interested in something of this from theirs or like similar functionality from another brand, which is
yeah, yeah,
Casio
yeah.
or something. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of doing it. You're sort of priming the person who's interested into learning how to like more critically evaluate something, just as a product.
Mm,
That there might be some
exactly.
kind of, I don't know, bias or like tendency for us to do that as people who kind of review products for a living, just got to put that out there. And not everyone wants to do that though. So it's pretty hard. I would say though, even beyond us, like it would be great if you listen to us and in our opinions, and hopefully we would provide some value there. But really, I think the hard part with everyday carry, especially how we were talking about how you can see a lot of stuff online from other people, is that it's always going to come down to your personal preference, and you're not going to know that until you try things. And that is like the both the most difficult and I think the most fun of starting out. You have this blank slate, really. You have this fresh start, and say for example you want to carry a pocket knife, you've never carried one. Well, now you get to like learn about pocket knives and like try them out, and ultimately you might decide like, I don't need the pocket knife, it's kind of stupid, I don't need this. And then you've
Mm.
solved that arc. At least you've gone through that process. So I guess to like actually answer, well,
Taking it back to Arc.
also not sponsored. Um, yeah.
Not sponsored.
Uh,
Exactly.
but yeah, I think just to go back to the original question of like, how does a beginner sort of make their first EDC? Um, I think you can do a lot of this sort of looking outward and seeing what other people have just to get inspiration or ideas, and then you ask yourself questions that you might ask them like, well, okay, if you're interested in this, like what about it does it seem to resonate with you, or what about this did you like? And then that's when you just kind of like narrow your sort of search filters. And then at the same time you're probably trying to educate yourself on maybe the philosophy or the purpose of each thing until you kind of get more of an intuition or fluency around the everyday carry is like a system of things that I use, and these particular products will help me in these circumstances. And then you just test, iterate, kind of rinse, repeat. So yeah, it's gonna be a different journey, I think, for a lot of people.
And I think part of the difficulty here is it's unfortunate and it's kind of like a crappy process of it, but you really do need to try something to find out whether you like it or not, or if it works for you. Because like
Mhm.
maybe you see something from somebody else's carry, and then you like save up all of your savings for it, you buy it, and turns out, oh no, this doesn't work for me at all. And like you had to spend money to participate in the hobby, and to only to find out that this particular thing that you had been hung up on is actually wasn't for you. So, and this is
Okay.
also how people end up with like 30 knives, 50 bags. Everybody's just trying to find like the perfect thing. Spoiler, I don't think there might be a perfect thing for every category for you, but that's another topic. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, am I toxic if I feel very little sympathy for the person that blows their life savings on something they've like never held before? I think you're exaggerating in that example, right?
Eh, yeah, I am exaggerating, of course, yeah.
Okay, that pause like worried me. I thought you were gonna.
But this is why I don't like the word cheap for everyday carry. I hate the word cheap because I would rather look at it from the frame of there is always a more affordable option for you to try something or to explore something. You don't always have to like buy like a handcrafted titanium magna cut thing from
Right.
a one-time maker on Instagram. You can explore a style, you can explore the blade shape, the blade handles. You can like you don't have to spend so much on like the one thing. And I hate the term cheap because I'd rather frame it in the mindset of there's an affordable option if you look for it, or if like if you really bringing it back to what you said, like critically thinking about how you might need or want something might lead you down the path of something that actually turned out to be more affordable. So that's also part of the journey, I think.
What is the context that you're hearing the word cheap that makes you so like riled up about it? Like is this somebody who's saying like what's a good cheap knife, or somebody like a beginner for example, or somebody who's more in the hobby and says like, "Oh, that's just like a cheap version of whatever I carry." Because I do want to just like um
I,
kind of divide, because not everyone is going to be like super deep enthusiasts, right? A lot of these people, they might just say cheap because
mm,
what they're looking for is accessible, right? Or like low investment or low risk or whatever, because they're
mm,
new. And there's understandably this fear, like you're saying, they don't want to invest pocket space, money, time, whatever into something that doesn't work out. So cheap is what feels safe to them.
mm. Yeah. I think of it in the context of like I hear it all the time. Like somebody like a beginner to EDC will show me like, oh, this is my EDC. Sorry, it's just a budget thing. It's just like all of my stuff. It's cheap, but it's useful to me. And I don't like. I hate thinking of it that way. I'm like, dude, this is useful for you. This is something that like you would use every day. I actually find that it's a
Mm,
bonus that it was affordable. Like if you're a
mm,
student, you don't have all that money to burn, but somehow you found a way to complete an entire EDC that works for your college life. I mean, that's something for me to
uh,
celebrate. Like, and I
yeah,
don't want them
okay.
to be in the mindset of like somebody's gonna look at their college carry and say, oh, you just have a cheap pen, you're using a cheap Bic pen or like a cheap Zebra. And I hate that mentality because I like recommending things from like all the way from the very end and all the way from the bottom. It's like the journey is different for everybody, right? And it's like the term cheap triggers me because I don't want people to feel bad about something that they like just because it wasn't expensive. That's the thing. I think that's the hook I was trying to make there.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And spoken like a true broke boy, clearly. Uh, just kidding. But yeah,
I was
I
talking
think what
about
you're,
me.
yeah, I know
It was me
this
all along.
entire time you got downvoted for your college carry. I know. That was me downvoting you. But I think what you're getting at is the when people say cheap, you don't want it to devalue just the EDC as a whole, where for some reason there's like this
Mm,
expectation that, or not expectation, but norm that more expensive is better. And that I think is just a result of like how we're talking about
mm,
modern EDC. Like, yeah, 10 years ago, um, 10 years ago, I was posting stuff that's way, like, I was a college student back then. I was posting stuff that's way out of my budget. I had an appreciation for it, but I didn't get comments at the time like, why would you post this? This is so stupid. This is so overpriced. I didn't get that. I feel like that's like the price sensitivity is a
Mm.
more recent thing, and it's like a common source of outrage, and understandably, right?
Yeah, it
Because like
is.
things are expensive now. EDC, like we call it essential,
Mm.
but there is some aspect of EDC where it's like these are luxury things. These are, accessories, and they're not truly essential, but you do carry
It
them every
is.
day. And like, I'm not gonna police that. But anyway, getting back to this sort of framing of value, right? Uh, and the sort of shame behind budget items. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that people need to feel ashamed by anyone else in the EDC community. Like, hopefully, that's not in our community of people who aren't spending a lot of money. It's actually more. I think I hope that when people say, "Oh, my cheap college carry," that they can wear that with a badge of pride. Like that is a flex that, hey, I'm able to have a functional EDC for
Mm.
myself and I'm not spending as much as you are. But again,
Free to play, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah, people just value different things. So I know, I get it. Cause yeah, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but I do kind of want to maybe compare just like how we got into EDC back then versus kind of these things that we're talking about now, because we're talking about like jumping in a Discord and asking for a recommendation, or like looking on Instagram to see what other people's EDCs are, or maybe like checking Reddit, or reading everydaycarry.com when you do a quick Google, right? None of that really existed when
Mm.
we started.
Well, not sponsored, actually sponsored.
Well, yeah, but no. Like for me, I got into it by looking at. Well, first of all, I needed a new flashlight to put in my raw denim jeans because I wanted them to fade a certain way. There was like this streetwear brand, skate brand, Supreme. They collabed with Maglite, the Solitaire. Remember Maglite when like they didn't have 12,000 lumen LED arrays?
Oh
It was
wow.
like, so this was literally an incandescent bulb, triple. Yeah, I
Incandescent
know.
bulbs.
Triple A, single emitter, incandescent. Not even an emitter; it's an incandescent bulb, and it was less than 1 lumen total output with like a focusable beam. That's how maglites were. I was like, "Yo, this sucks." So I just started like googling for good high-powered flashlights, and then I eventually found candle power forums, and then I saw that those people were referring to things as like EDC or everyday carry, and then I just found this whole network of these small separated online forums communities, and I just kind of had to integrate myself into them. And it's way different to do now, by the way. Back then you would have to like lurk and read, and then if you reply, like you hopefully you bring value to be a member, or a valued member of the community. And now it's just like you just show up, you make your own thread, type in all caps. Surely not me, I'm describing you, but um, yeah, so that's how I kind of got into all of
Mm.
that. I had to do kind of this research, and I did have to order things and like read other people's reviews, um, and make my own reviews. I published reviews of my own stuff. I participated in forums and stuff like that, but that form of communication is just not as popular today. So I did go through several iterations of the EDC um, treadmill, I guess. And what was
Mm.
it like for you?
I'm gonna bring it back to I'm gonna bring it back to what I said earlier about making a recommendation for someone. Like, did you see something in a movie? Which is exactly how it started for me.
Mm,
There was a movie called Kick Ass, which was one of the early superhero movies. And one of the characters there, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, got me into EDC inadvertently by having two specific things in the movie. She had two Benchmade Belisong 42 knives. And at the
mm,
end of the movie, she used a strobe on a flashlight that I'd never seen before. This was around the time of the Maglite solitaires that you
all
mentioned.
right.
But somehow her flashlight, which was a movie prop, like movie magic, of course, had this like amazing tactical strobe that was like
Kick-Ass came
visceral.
out in 2010, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. So that strobe was like obviously movie magic, but at the time it was like super disorienting, super powerful. No way that thing existed in real life at the time. But those two things, that knife and that flashlight, just got me searching. And then that's how I ended up on everydaycarry.com, the Tumblr. I mean, sorry, everydaycarry, the Tumblr, not the
Yeah.
.com. Sorry. And from there, I was like, oh, these are cool things. What's this flashlight? What's this knife? What's all of this stuff? What are all of these brands? Maxpedition, like Phoenix. What are all of these amazing 4.7s brand? And then like I got a DM whoever's running this. I got to ask about something because I'm going on a trip and I saw this Victorinox thing. I don't know what Victorinox is. Can you recommend me
Mm,
something? And 12 years later, here we are.
I know, right? 13, 13 years later. But
13. Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Dang.
Anyway, I think that's enough lore for us olds. Um,
So, what are our takeaways from this episode?
well, I think
The
they're
first inaugural EDC
hopefully
podcast
like
episode.
yeah, hopefully this is useful for somebody who had a passing curiosity in EDC, and hopefully they kind of get a picture of what it's like to participate in the community or sort of get on the path of their own journey, sort of knowing that like the basic literal definition of everyday carry, right? I don't even think we need to go into that too much, where it's just like the things that you keep on your person, in your
Mm.
pockets or in your bag or whatever every day to feel prepared, solve daily problems, or just things that you deem essential, right? I think that's a fairly widespread definition. And as you sort of get into this and look into other people's setups, you'll sort of understand what is important to them, what resonates with you. It might mean something is important to you, and you're just going to shape your EDC that way. Some people can make it in a vacuum, probably not in this day and age. Um, but that's just like the basic version of it that I think will serve as like a at least point people in the right direction who didn't really know what any of this is. And hopefully between the conversations that we've had,
Mm.
um, we didn't even talk about what's currently in our EDCs. That could be a different thing, but just the way we talk about um, different items and how we kind of think about this and approach this. Hopefully we've not made it seem that like all people who are into EDC just have like a bajillion weapons on them and like that's all they care about. Like that's kind of like a characterized version that you might see because
Mm.
of the way social media works, things going viral or like causing outrage or whatever. But no, it's like pretty chill, pretty individual, kind of a reflection of a bunch of different people with some common threads of preparedness, utility, versatility, but not necessarily everyone has to follow the same thing. And the people that kind of do want to gatekeep in that way or police people's pockets in that way, we don't necessarily agree with. So, anyway, all of that is to say, we hope for people that are new to EDC that you approach this with some curiosity. And the number one takeaway is frame things in what is best for me and understand that's going to be an individual journey.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And then hopefully for the people that are kind of, like us, maybe they're already into EDC, maybe they have one, maybe hopefully this stuff is interesting, but it will maybe open up some different topics they maybe haven't really thought about or shed light on some, I don't know, behaviors or aspects of the community that might be interesting to them, something that they can share or even use to explain or justify them being so into EDC with their friends and family, right?
Absolutely. And we want to be there. We want to be there with that journey. Like, hopefully, like by listening to this podcast, you can learn something from us. Like, if you want to let us know, like what you'd like us to talk about. We have a ton of topics we already want to talk about. This is already going longer than I expected, but we want to explore more about not just the gear itself, but like making the gear useful for you, helping you find or like focus that journey that you're on. Like it doesn't have to always be spend, 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 buy, collect, collect, collect. It can be thinking about where do you lie versus with like using your tools or appreciating them as art. Where do you lie between high end versus budget stuff? So there's a lot of topics we can cover, and hopefully by with more episodes and more conversations between myself and Bernard, we can help you find that path as well, and maybe something resonates and something becomes useful for you moving forward.
Yeah, really well put. I think by the end of these episodes, I would love if, as a listener, and you on your EDC journey, you kind of learn a little bit more about yourself and your EDC, right? I think that's a great place to end this episode. Thanks so much for listening. You can subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Share with a friend if you think that they'll enjoy it. It would really help the show. And then be sure to check out our content on everydaycarry.com and then follow us on social for more from us as well.
All right. Catch you next time, guys. Thank you. This is
All
Mikey.
right, this is Bernard. Peace.